Something as simple as looking at the Dropbox folder and the way you like to see it and the way I like to see it. Completely different. You like to see it listed out, very orderly, like files ordered, and I need to see the visual of the actual folder. And I can't function. My brain just can't function the same way. So I can't sit next to you and look at your computer and say, oh, this is it. I need to go find my own computer and look at the way I have it, and then it works for me. It's something as silly as that.
Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Pickles and Pasta with Steph and Jay. Hey, Steph.
Hey, Jay.
How's it going?
Great. I can't wait to talk about our topic today.
This is a good one. I love that we do these semi together. I think it's interesting, like how obviously I have a great producer and he throws us ideas and he kind of lays it out for us and then we review them. And this is another one of those where you really kind of went, you know what? I want to make a couple of changes to this one, and I think it's great. So I'm gonna kind of set it up a little bit and let you come and do your thing. But our topic this week is loving someone who creates differently than you, and I think that's it couldn't be more appropriate. The two of us, we are both creatives, but obviously come at it from very different places and different upbringings and different structures and or just all sorts of differences. And it's interesting because we do so much together. We do stuff separate, of course, connected but separate. Like, maybe just I want to clarify that. Like, obviously you have your stuff, I have my stuff. That's fine. But we're constantly interacting with each other's stuff. So, you're not a filmmaker, but if I'm working on some sort of content, a film project that I'm looking at, all about it. And I'm coming to you to be like, well, how do you see it? And what do you think about, all these different things. So, but it's interesting how we're able to do that. And, with really, our processes are so different. So I don't know, maybe you can kind of start off with a couple of what your thinking is around this. Cause obviously I think it's interesting. And it's an interesting topic.
Yes. And as I was preparing for this podcast episode, I was seeing a lot of the language in the way our producer presented the topic in, the way he shares it with us. The word argue was throughout the information, and I kept on stalling on that word. And I was like reflecting on it because you and I don't really argue. We literally spend almost every day together, working together. Yet it's fascinating that we have discussions all the time, but it's never an argument. I'm never saying to you, oh, you need to see this the way I see it. You need to go about this project the way I see it. I think our strength, and honestly, I would say this for the collective in general, I think the strength of a collective is the difference. And I wish that our world could apply that to how we work within the collective universe. Like,
Right.
Be more curious about how someone creates or does something. And I think if people got more curious about the way other people see things and do things, we would benefit tremendously.
Yeah, for sure.
And so when it comes to you and I and how I go about creating and you go about creating, they're completely different, yet they complement. And I think that is the strength that we have as a creative couple navigating the world and what we do.
Yeah, I think that's very accurate. When something comes up, whatever it is, right? It could be a project, it could be something we have to do for a client, it could be a presentation, it could be, anything, an event that we're doing. Like, when that new thing happens, you can see it. Like we both go into our zones, right? Like I'm looking at it the way I do, you're looking at the way you do, and it's very it's if there was like a camera on us, which luckily there isn't. Although I
There
do
is one
think
now.
right, that's fair, but we're behaving ourselves. But I've often said I wish I had a camera to kind of capture some of the stuff that you do and some of the stuff you say, like the really adorable stuff that I'm like, I wish you could see what you just did or whatever. But there's also the other stuff about like how you function or how I function. And like, if you kind of had that side by side, you'd be like, how is this working? Like, how does this make sense? But it just does. Like, you know, we've seen it. We've seen it like when we set up, we set up the show like that we did when we did your art show at the Goggle Works, right? Like you had your mind how it was going to work. I, as someone who's produced events and has done this sort of stuff, I had a whole different idea of like how we're going to set this up. But it was your show. So it wasn't like I was involved, obviously, but it wasn't like my show to do the way. It wasn't like a client hired me and said, go do this. I was there to help support you. So you had your thing and you're like, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to draw this out this way. And I'm like, okay, I think we should do it this way or that way, whatever. And because I'm thinking it from this other thing, I'm like, oh, this is going to happen there. So it's interesting when we have to work on like, that's a project we have to kind of do together, right? The art was already created, right? So that part's done. So really the part was we had to execute this thing. It was about you. So we had to make sure that came through properly. We had to think of like all this other stuff. And I jumped in with stuff that you didn't think about because that's the whole point. Like I can see something, that makes sense. So, but I also had to kind of adjust to the way you went through it. And it's just a different method of operation. And it's true. Like we don't argue. I mean, I think that's actually very true. I remember seeing that in the original document. I like argue. Okay. I'm just not going to pay attention to that.
Yeah. I couldn't get past it.
Yeah. No, that's kind of, okay. So right there.
It's a good example.
Perfect example, right? Like I saw some of the stuff in there. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to talk about that. Like, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. But I saw the other stuff and I'm like, okay, it's fine. I'll just go past that line and whatever. And you were like, I can't work this way. Like, I have to see this document the way I have to see this document for me to function, which is totally cool, which interestingly is much more me than you, right? It's much more me to be like, that period is like in the wrong place. And I'll spend an hour trying to format something that for whatever reason I can't format. And our producer can attest to that because he's seen the documents that we've done. And I'm going bananas to try to get it absolutely the way it has to be. And even when it's there, I'm like, that's not right. It's still not right. But I'm like, I can't spend another 2 hours on this. So it's interesting, I think, how that is. And I think a lot of the stuff and a lot of the way that I work, as creative as it is, and in many ways, way more creative than creatives, like real creatives, is not a creative way to work in some ways. I see it as a creative way to work, not for me, but because I think I've said this to you before. When I do stuff, I'm always looking to make it as easy as possible for the creative to really be creative, whether it's the artist or the musician or the director or the actor. That's the way I see my role. So I have to get very creative by doing stuff that's really mundane and really methodical and really the boring stuff that nobody really wants to do. But I've got to do that. I've got to do that so there's that real solid ground that they can jump from without worrying. Like they know they can jump and they can land safely. Like, and it's okay. They can go way out and it doesn't matter because I've covered that stuff. So I have to work in this way so that they can do their stuff. And I think it's a very different way to work. I don't know many people that get it.
Yes. And I am getting it. I do get it. And I find it actually very essential to so much of the work that I do. I think that's why we work so well as a couple and as partners, because the things that you're strongest in is really using your creativity to create a space where it's easy for me to be creative.
Right.
So like that's kind of your superpower.
Yeah.
And my superpower is creating the things within a sense of freedom. And my creativity is kind of giving other people permission to let their creativity come out. And I'm starting to really try to understand what it is that is my special strength and what it is that is your special strength, and define those roles so that maybe we can help others like navigate something they want to put out into the world. And maybe that's part of the role of us doing this podcast.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think as a creative, as a it's weird. We keep saying this word creative, and it's kind of like implying that I'm not creative, but I am, but I'm not, whatever. But let's use in this context like physical creative, like you're a painter, like you're a designer, like that's physical creative. My creativity is a different sort of thing. And there's a lot of emotion that goes into what you do. Right? Like you can't do any of what you do without having emotion attached to it. So it's either good emotion or bad emotion, but there's emotion. So sometimes you cry, like sometimes you're painting something, nothing happened and you start crying. And then other stuff happens, and then you can get angry, or you can get whatever. You can there's tension up and down, left, right, whatever. And sometimes you have to be alone and whatever. You have to have your music and all this kind of stuff. And I like having the music, and I have all this stuff, but it's very different. My creativity is very different, and I have to, or I feel I have to keep my emotion in check, even though I'm running like at 1 billion miles an hour and I'm really emotional, and I could be like crying on the inside, or I could be screaming on the inside, or I could be laughing on the inside. Okay, laughing I'll do outside too, but I'll do that stuff because I have to keep it in check, because I can't. It's not like don't let them see you cry kind of thing, because I don't care about that. But it's like I've got stuff I have to get done, and I can't let what I'm dealing with affect the other people that are doing what they have to do. So I might get upset, I might get a little tense, I might get short with people sometimes, and I do my best not to do that, but I know I do. But it's very, very different. And I don't know, maybe you can add to that, but I think that the emotion in the way you do it, like if I was getting emotional while you're getting emotional, what good is that going to do any of us?
It's true. You're usually calming me down.
Yeah.
Or trying to.
Yeah, and I have to be creative in doing that.
Yeah,
it's not
you
the,
do.
not the same. It's not the same way every time. Like sometimes I have to let you go. Meaning like sometimes you just have to. You're going to have to get upset, and I have to sit there and be like, okay, she's got to let this go, because if she keeps it in, if she doesn't, if she's trying to argue, whatever. And look, it's a lot of. The reality is that if you're going to do something, we've talked about this I think before. Like if you want to do something just by yourself, all on your own, you're just going to do stuff. You don't care about anything that happens past that. You're not trying to get it out there. You don't have to work with other people. Do whatever the hell you want. Write shit on a piece of paper, throw it on the wall. It doesn't make a difference. But if you're going to do anything where even one other person has to be involved, you have to start to develop some kind of system or some kind of process. That's something that I'm apparently pretty good at.
That's your superpower. That's your superpower.
And it's something that you're like, you have a system, but it's hard for other people to understand your system. So it's like finding that balance of like, okay, how are you going to find what you have to find? How are you going to put things where they make sense for you, that you can get them as quickly as you can when you need them, but that somebody else can kind of help when they have to get involved in the process, or somebody else knows where that is. And that's kind of it's an interesting kind of thing to kind of work with.
Well, I'm going to jump in here right now before I lose my train of thought. And it's just that you can't do everything that needs to be done for a project by yourself. I've learned that, because frankly, I did that for a very long time, and a lot of things weren't done completely properly. Let's just say that. So your creativity is seeing how a system can be developed and created. That's your creativity, in order for the creative energy to go out into the world. That is your creativity. You somehow look at a bunch of stuff that someone else is doing. I'm one of those people. and you help create a system for it and you see it. And that is like such an amazing thing to be able to do. And for anybody out there who has a project, that is one of Jay's superpowers. So, that's what Effluence does. I'm just going to give it a plug because it's true,
Right, okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
The way I work is like, I have like the way I see things, that's my superpower. Whether it is like the placement of furniture in a space, if I'm doing interior design, if it's the balance of a painting and the colors and the shapes and the scale of the things in a painting, like I know how to do that. And I don't know how I know how to do that. When it comes to like, creating a dish, like I'm cooking even, like I know how to put something in there, some flavor that's going to make it taste good. I don't like to follow recipes. So, we all have these intuitive things that we're good at. And I understand that your superpower is very different from mine and mine is very different from yours. And like, let's say, for example, as you recently redid the Effluence website and you wanted my eye. And, I found that I could contribute to your work also with my eye. And I could say, no, that is so not right. And so now I'm an art director.
Yeah. No, it's
but like,
it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
No, please, you can.
As you're telling this thing, the vision that just is in my head that I can't get it out is making those tea sandwiches. Like like watching you make them was one of the most painful things I've had to endure in a really long time. Like I was like, that's just not the right way there's no way this is the right way to do this. We can't be doing this way. And I tried as best I could, but you were in the zone, getting ready for the party, all this kind of stuff. It's taking literally four times longer than what we anticipated it was going to take. And I'm looking at this whole assembly and I'm like, no, if we have to make it in my mind, and I didn't say it because I couldn't say anything to you at that moment because you were in that zone. So I had to kind of dance that, like, don't do the other stuff. Be ready. This is coming. But I was
apologize.
Like, no, I don't. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it was adorable. But I'm like, no. We have to make this an assembly line. I've seen this before. I know how this works. If we do it like this and this and this and this is going to save her time. We're going to catch up. But you couldn't. So I couldn't.
I wasn't organized enough to do that.
Correct. And so, because you just thought you had it under control, which is fine.
I thought it was going to work out perfectly.
Didn't work out that way. Although the sandwiches were fantastic.
But people did love them and they thought they were cute.
I did too. They were amazing. But I was like, and that's where it's tricky from this side of the table and from the artist side of the table. Like from this side table, you're like, oh my God, this is going to be so painful. And there's nothing I can do about it. And sometimes you're just in that place, like, and there's just, and you have to say it, and there's nothing you can do about it. So suck it up, calm down, stay calm, and just be prepared because you know where this is going. And then you go into the other stuff, and then you let that happen. You're like, okay, so I'm going to have to do this thing a little bit differently because now I lost 12 minutes here, or this document isn't going to be the way I want it, so I'm going to have to change that. Like, that's kind of what you do in this kind of side of it. So, but yeah, I think we're only further proving the point of like having this balance is what really great creativity is. And I think you can look at it throughout history in all sorts of different things. Actually, somebody earlier was messaging on some group I was on, and somebody said something. It was one of these stupid things where people say stupid things in these WhatsApp groups. And someone said, if this feels like Who's on First, famous Abbott and Costello skit, which I can do all the way through, probably by heart, on my own, both sides, which I did. Like, I couldn't
Which is brilliant
myself.
that you can do that still.
It's not really. It's crazy that I do. But
I love it.
What I couldn't control myself, so I, of course, started typing out a dialogue from that skit to this friend who was complaining about this privately off the group chat, and he didn't get it right away. and then he did, like, he commented, he was like, wait, who? And I was like, oh, he's like, oh, I get it. It was very funny. But that's, I'm using it as an example here, not to make fun of myself more than usual, but like Abbott and Costello were two totally different people. Like, they were just total polar opposites. I mean, Abbott was a drunk and was a straight guy, and Costello was not a drunk and was hilarious and was willing to make fun of himself and was willing to get dirty and messy or whatever. And Abbott was like the straight-laced guy. And it worked. It was brilliant because of it, And
Yeah.
I mean, the list is endless of that sort of stuff. So
yes. Lucille Ball and Desi,
perfect. Yeah. I mean,
perfect example.
Perfect. I mean, and
and now there's Steph and Jay.
Steph and Jay, exactly. So, but I think it's true, and I think it's interesting as we're talking about this. I remember hearing all sorts of different advice. Starting when I had my first company, and even people love giving people advice, especially unwarranted. There were people that would say you want to hire entrepreneurs, and then there were other people as like, no, you definitely don't want to hire entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs are going to try to do it their way, not the company way. And there's all these different thoughts about like how to do that. And, there's the famous Steve Jobs thing of like, we don't hire people to tell them what to do. We hire them so that they can tell us what to do. And there's all these different like things that they say. I think what I've done, not always successfully, is I've always tried to look, I don't succeed all the time, is like, how is this team going to work together? And it's funny because like, I'm not a baseball fan particularly at all. I mean, as a kid, I liked all sports. I wasn't really very good at baseball, but I really liked it, but I just wasn't good at it. But it's interesting how I very often come back to baseball thinking. And if you think about a baseball game, I hope people that are listening understand this, hopefully. But if you think of a baseball game and you have the team, the regular players on the team and the infielders and the outfielders, well, that's who's staying in the team. For the most part, those guys are going to play the whole game, for the most part. But the manager has to pick a pitcher that's going to help them in the specific situation they're in right now. Like, there's a starting pitcher and he's going to pitch as many innings as he pitches, and maybe pitches the whole game or not, whatever. When you start to get into like the playoffs and like big stuff, he's got to think through exactly, I need this pitcher to get this guy out. That's all I care about right now. Because if I don't get this guy out, we're in a lot of trouble. And he may be the worst pitcher for everybody else on the team that we're up against, but I got to get this guy out. So I'm pulling this guy in. And I think of that kind of strategy in the business world. It's a matter of, you've got to get this job done. And it's going to be this person and this person and this person. And on paper, that might not work. It just doesn't make any sense. But in reality, between this person's personality and this person's weakness and this person's, enthusiasm and this person's calmness, this group of people are going to execute this thing really, really well. And I don't think enough people look at it that way. I think they look at like best person for the job. And when there's 10 jobs on a job, the best person on the job does not necessarily mean that those 10 people are going to get the job done as best as it could be. And they lose sight of the fact that the job is the most important thing, not the person for the job. The person is a piece of the
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I don't think enough people think about that. And
that's very interesting.
I think about that maybe too much.
And that's a specific creative language. There are so many different types of creative languages. I mean, what would you say your creative language? If you had to tell someone your creative language, how would you describe that?
Widely.
Translate, please.
Yeah, I have my own language, unfortunately, so sometimes people don't understand the words that I use. But no, look, I am always looking ahead. Like I'm very much. It's weird. Like, I mean, people say that, like, they're like, oh, you're so optimistic about this or that or whatever. And like I said, this is going to work out and blah, 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 whatever. And they're like, how can you be so optimistic? It's whatever. but I'm also realistic and I'm also pragmatic. Like I have those things are always coming together. Like I refuse to get so caught up in the muck and the dirt and everything else to not see where it's going. I have to see where it's going. I don't function very well if I don't see where something is going. Like I can't. They're like, oh, we just have, and a lot of times it's difficult for people that are part of our team. Like sometimes it's difficult for them. They're like, oh my God, why do I have to do it this way? And I'm like, I sometimes I have to like be like, I just need you to do this. I'm begging you now, please. Like just please do this. There's a reason.
Because there's an essential part of the puzzle that needs to be done.
And it doesn't make sense. And I get it. And I have to say to them, it's like, I get that this doesn't make sense. I get it. You just gotta work with me on this one because I gotta get this other thing done. And you're the only person who can do this one thing. Like it's very tricky. It's very, very tricky because the reality of the world is there are a lot of moving parts, even with where we are now in our stage of where Effluence is. We're not a huge company. Like we're small, we're tiny, but there's still so many moving parts. There's this
and so many things are changing in the world and how this industry functions. Yeah.
Every day. So it's like this person's reaching out about this, but I know I have to go do that part, but I can't do that until that thing happens and I have to make this thing. I'm not being dramatic. It's just realistic. Like there's multiple things. From the smallest little projects that we do, like the ones that seem so simple and so tiny, there's still a few different things that are going on. And you have to really think about those things. And you have to think about, well, what happens after? Once we deliver this project, now what do we do? And that's where, understanding people and understanding that everybody's a little different and everybody functions a little differently. That's the key. That's really the key.
And that's also the key to leadership,
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess it is. I mean, you have to be able to do that. You have to be able to really understand it. But it can be frustrating. Look, it can be very frustrating.
If people can't meet where you're leading them to, and they can't follow where you're leading them, that is a place where it's going to kind of muck up the wheels and the way things are turning and moving.
Yeah. I think, I have to be, I was raised and I'm genetically inclined to be respectful towards people, regardless of what they do, where they're from. That's just my nature. I lead with respect always until you have my respect until you lose it. I've always kind of followed that rule personally. Mm-hmm. And so I do my best to be conscious of like what might be going in that other person's head, what may be going on in their life at the moment, why they're so adamant about wanting to do this or not wanting to do this. Like, why do they not like this software? Or why do they not like the way we set up this document? Or why do they not like the way we packed the car back in the day when we had traveling to tournaments? Like, I would try, I would really work on not just being like, just do it my way. It's my way. You got to do it this way. I mean, there were certain things that we had to do that. Certain things we had to be like, look, this is a system we developed. This is the system. It's not up for discussion. This is the way we do it, period. But then there were also more often than not be like, okay, what do you think we should do here? Like, how do you think we should make this work? So it's finding that balance. And I think if you can show people respect and show that you're listening and you care what they have to say, even if you go totally the opposite direction. But if you're like, okay, I really heard you. Mm-hmm. I really see what you're saying, why you think it should go this way. Let me explain to you why we're going this other direction. Like, let me explain to you why, because based on your plan, there's these things or that things. And sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes you should have taken the other person's path instead of your own. But you have to make
nobody's gonna be right all the time. I would say that having a sense of curiosity and also having the ability to mutually respect the other people that you're engaging with. I mean, really, I think we should have mutual respect in general in life.
Regardless. Yeah. 100%.
But I think those two things are very important when you're working in collaboration with other people. And so that's just kind of something that I see when you're dealing with people who create differently than you do.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Where do your ideas mostly come from, and when and how do you know when they're worth pursuing?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I mean, they come from all over the place. Like, I mean, I'm a annoyingly curious person. Like,
Annoyingly? Why? Well,
yeah.
you do
Well,
ask a lot of questions,
I
so
ask a lot of
sometimes
questions. It's annoying.
sometimes it is annoying.
It's annoying. It's annoying. I ask a lot of questions. I'm very, very curious. Like, I'm very, very curious about everything. And from that, the ideas just pop in. They just pop. Like, they're right there. I mean, the ideas are everywhere if your eyes are open, I think. I mean, there's certain things that I actually naturally gravitate towards. And listen, there's tons of things I think about, ideas that I have. I'm like, okay, well, I can't do everything. Like, not that I'm supposed to do everything, but like I have to kind of keep myself focused on the things that I do. But I think the ideas come from curiosity, and from that curiosity comes experience, and
Maybe being open-minded also allows the atmosphere to be fertile for ideas.
Yeah, I think that's valid. I mean, I think you have to be. I think if you're too rigid, if you're too, if you're
too like, this is the only way this can work.
Yeah, I don't.
That might be one of the reasons why I get so many ideas, because I have always been incredibly open-minded, and maybe that's the key to that a little bit.
Well, if you're open, it's easy for things to come in.
It's like,
right?
There could be that.
I mean, it's a tricky thing. Even you can see it for yourself as an artist. I mean, it's a tricky thing because how many paintings can you do at one time, right? Like how.
And also, you want to kind of look like you're one person and not a schizophrenic.
Yeah, there's that. I mean, who said that? Who said that? Yeah. But yeah. So, but sure, I could see that. But yeah, I think I think it's important to do that. I think it's important to keep that. Do you ever feel like, with the fact that we do things, have different ways of doing things, that like I'm just totally not getting it? Like, do you run into that, or do you feel like, okay,
no,
I know he gets this, but he's just maybe not this moment, we're saying it differently or something like that? Like,
no, I have
like this misunderstanding. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Like there's so many times. I mean, just today, just about the folder, like looking at the Dropbox, something as simple as looking at the Dropbox folder and the way you like to see it and the way I like to see it. Completely different. You like to see it listed out, very orderly, like files ordered, and I need to see the visual of the actual folder. And I can't function. My brain just can't function the same way. So I can't sit next to you and look at your computer and say, oh, this is it. I need to go find my own computer and look at the way I have it, and then it works for me. It's something as silly as that. But
I'm not laughing at you, I promise.
I've come to an understanding that when you giggle and smile, I used to be like, what are you laughing at? Like, are you laughing at me? Now I'm beyond that.
Because it's adorable. It's adorable. It's absolutely adorable. Like, I totally get what you're saying. And yeah, and obviously I know that's the case. And I've definitely worked on trying to, or worked on systems or ways to balance it out, that you can still find what you're looking without you having to set it up the way I set it up, because that's me forcing you into a place. That's not the idea. And it's a very interesting perspective, right? Because like you said, I have my folders lined up like this. I have images when I have images, those folders, I'll have the image because I can see the thumbnail. But on folders, regular folders, I set it always to be in that way, sorted, usually I sort it by the name of the folder. Sometimes I sort it by the date because there's a lot of activity going on and I know I want to find the most recent one at the top.
And you think through all of those details.
Yes,
I
do.
don't. I
Yes,
don't. I'm messier. I am an abstract. I'm an abstract painter, and I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that shit.
What's
That's how I
is that
view it.
as an abstract painter, that you're like, I don't see it. You draw eyes into almost every painting that you've ever painted since the beginning of time. So it's hilarious.
Which I don't intentionally do, but you see them in there.
Because they're there. So it's just hilarious that that's kind of it. Just think about that. Like, I don't see it. Well, the eyes are right there. The eyes are seeing it. Everybody else is seeing it. Even your paintings. No, but it's valid. And I think you look at it that way because you're visual. You've always said that. I'm a visual person. I have to see it. And whether it was something that I just had to do, like early on, I had to learn how to do this. I have to be able to see past what I'm physically looking at. I have to, and I have to get to where I have to get to as quickly as possible. So these systems that I have, which are not my systems per se, I mean, they are to a certain extent, but it's what I've learned and people taught, whatever. It's based on those other parameters. So yeah, it's different, but I mean, it's good. And I think I think our relationship is unique. I think it's good that we have that balance of like, okay, I know he gets what I'm saying, even though he's kind of not saying it, and vice versa.
It's a trust thing. I think it's a very core thing is I trust you. You trust me. And therefore, I don't care if you don't see it the exact way that I see it. I trust that you trust me. It's like this weird thing, which is amazing and beautiful. And maybe it's just like a soulmate thing. You know, I could dive deep in here and that's a whole other podcast. But like, I think the things that we complement each other so well as human beings.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think there's the underlying trust that we have enables us to bypass some of the things that could, in other situations, make people have a big argument. Like they could really get really pissed off and all that kind of stuff. And somehow we're able to kind of be like, okay, I get it, but I don't really get it. But I know there must be something there, and I'm not gonna go crazy over this thing. Like let's see. Okay, let's see where this goes. You know, and we can always address it afterwards. So I think that's part. I think you hit it on the head. I think the trust underneath everything is the most important thing. And you know that comes to anything in life. I mean, we're very blessed to have each other and to have this amazing connection that we have, which is beautiful on every level. But you know, you could still have a certain level of trust and a good, solid relationship without it being as deep as ours. And I think that if you can have that, if you can find those people in your life to have that, then you can create the balance that, you know, you're looking for in your life. Then I think great things can happen. Great creative things can happen and great other things can happen. But,
yeah, I mean, it's hard to put something out into the world today, you know? It takes a village.
This is just plug central today.
You know.
Yeah, fair enough. No,
it came out. This is not scripted, you know.
No, this is definitely not scripted. Yeah, for sure not. So yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's very. Yeah, I think it's great. I think. I don't even know what the topic was actually that our episode is about, whatever, but
it's loving someone who creates differently than you.
Right. Okay, got it. Yeah, I look, when I remember early on watching you paint, like I just could sit there and watch you paint. Like I just was getting so much joy out of watching your process. Even when I would look at certain things and be like, well, that's interesting. That's kind of interesting. Like, okay, like whatever. But I just was like learning and being curious and, you know, not, you know, in the beginning, I think I asked you a lot more questions, or maybe you just got used to it. But, you know, yeah, I loved watching that process. And I think then I looked at like, okay, how do I help and how do we do this together? And then over time, as more of my stuff started happening, you started looking at my stuff and be like, I want to help. Like this stuff about you helping, with some of the designs and some of the presentations and the website and stuff like that. That came from you being like, I can help with this. Like, I didn't want to bother you. And even though I always showed you stuff, but I was usually showing you stuff after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, well, maybe I can help. And I was like, I had the faith and the trust in you to be like, okay, I know you're going to do things very differently. You're going to approach these things differently. But yeah, I have enough faith and trust in you that let's see where this goes. And it's, it's really been very, very helpful. So, which I'm very grateful for. Thank you for that. So
you're more than welcome. It's easy for me to look at something and feel, and again, it's very internal connection to what's going on in my being that I then see it and I'm like, this ain't right.
Right.
That needs a change. It's too this or that. And it's goes really deep into my feeling,
Yeah.
space. So
Yeah. Very cool. Anything else to add? I think we kind of covered.
I feel like we're good, I feel like I feel like this is helpful for people who work in collaboration with other people, maybe people who are just couples. Any kind of ecosystem that you are involved with another person and you need to work together in some way. It doesn't have to be about creation of, creative projects. It could be, being a couple and
Yeah. I mean, it could be, it could be a relationship.
Making a home.
Yeah. It could be it could be like a personal or romantic relationship. It could be a business. It could be a combination of things. I mean, yeah, I think that's very accurate. I mean, I think, look, there's certain times where it's best that the two people are the same. Like sometimes that works out, but I think it's also very cool when you approach things differently. I mean, you have same core values, but your approach to creativity is different.
Yes.
I think you can find, ways to complement each other. And I guess the advice to, from our side is really be open to that. Just because someone, makes tea sandwiches differently than you do, it's okay. I mean, as long as they taste good in the end, and that's really what matters.
You have to have the end goal has to be compatible.
100%.
I mean, that's a given.
That's the key. Well, it's the key. I think a lot of things fail, relationships, businesses, because people say that, but it's not really true. The end goals are not exactly the same. And that's, I think, where things go south really fast. So,
yeah. And if you trust that you both have the same end goal, then you can move forward with your best foot forward, their best foot forward, and how you collaborate, should be argument free, at least. Definitely
should be argument free. On that note, let's make sure that your next week is argument free. That's our wish for you. Wishing
we'll
you
leave
an
you with that.
Argument free week. Yeah. So thank you all for joining and wishing you an argument free week. And we will see you next week on Pickles and Pasta with Steph and Jay. Bye.
Bye-bye.